Hello and welcome to another On This Day in Royal History live chat stream. Hello and welcome. I will give all of you guys a few minutes to just drop in. By the way, I am wearing my kind of medieval fleur-de-lis coronet today. Are you liking it? Are you living for it? I think it's really, really cool. I just felt like wearing a royal coronet today. I'm hoping notifications are getting sent out because it's always really, really good, of course, when there's you to talk to. I can see someone has dropped in already. So literally, before I just get into it, I will say that obviously today is April the 3rd of 2020, but we are going to be delving back much, much, much further into history about our topic today. And as I'm sure you can tell from the title, April the 3rd, and it was actually... wait just a second, I will pull something up for you all. There we go. My screen's gone really, really funny. Is anyone else having any live stream issues? There we go. Right, okay, I can see people dropping in. Hello to you all. Kelly says, the coronet goes brilliantly with your outfit. It's a perfect follow-up to the fringe tiara. Well, thank you so much. Right, I will go back to where I was just about to go to. So we are delving back to the 3rd of April of 1042. So this is going back way further than what I have done before in On This Day in Royal History. And we are going back to the coronation of Edward the Confessor, who got, this rather strange nickname. He is usually considered the last king of the House of Wessex. He reigned for 24 years from 1042 until 1066. So that was actually classed as being a really, really long reign for a monarch back then. He was the son of Ethelred the Unready and Emma of Normandy. He restored rule to the House of Wessex following King Canute's Danish rule. King Canute conquered England in 1016, so obviously his rule was returning it back to the Kingdom of Wessex. Now, Wessex, you may have heard that before. Now, Wessex as a geographical area doesn't exist anymore. We've got Sussex, we've got all different kinds of things, but we don't actually have Wessex. Obviously, the land is still there, but it was renamed. So, the Earl of Wessex, Prince Edward, the Queen's youngest son, actually chose to be created the Earl of Wessex, going back to this period in time where there was this large area known as Wessex. So if you were wondering where that title came from, that is where it actually came from. So his nickname, he kind of got this nickname because he was considered to be a little bit unworldly and slightly pious. And obviously the Confessor part of it was because of his reputation as a saint who did not suffer martyrdom. Some view his reign as being the kind of like a disintegration of royal power, and that was due to the infighting that resulted from Edward the Confessor not leaving an heir. As we know, with monarchy, being certain of who is next in line is always a really, really good thing. With the uncertainty came a lot of unrest in the immediate period after his death. Other historians, in particular Frank Barlow and Peter Rex, have argued that actually he had a very successful reign. And I'm going to read a little bit to you about what they say about that. So, biographers Frank Barlow and Peter Rex have said, On the other hand, they portray Edward as a very successful king, one who was energetic, resourceful, and sometimes ruthless. They argue that the Norman conquest shortly after his death tarnished his image. However, Richard Mortimer argues that the return of the Godwins from exile in 1052 meant the effective end of his exercise of power, citing Edward's reduced activity as implying a withdrawal from affairs. So there we have it. Speculation on whether or not his reign was positive or negative. As with everything, you can kind of almost see positives and negatives in everything. And historians don't always agree on the same topic. In 1161, Pope Alexander III canonised Edward as Saint Edward, and he was one of England's national saints, until Edward III made St George England's patron saint. So most of you will know that St George is a patron saint of England, but it was previously Saint Edward, and that obviously was all changed throughout history. Things do change, and this most certainly did. St Edward's feast day still exists, and that is always on the 13th of October and is recognised and celebrated by the Church of England and the Catholic Church. Now, I want to read a little bit to you about the timing of the coronation. So the timing of the coronation has varied throughout British history. King Edgar's coronation was 15 years after his accession in 957. So we're in kind of round about the right time period. Usually the coronations in today's modern world usually take place about 12 months after the accession to the throne. However, throughout British history, that has varied wildly. So King Edgar's coronation, as I said before, was 15 years after his accession, and may have been intended to mark the high point of his reign, because he was actually crowned 15 years after his accession at the age of 30, the age at which Jesus was baptised. So it could have been delayed to mark a poignant part in his life. Harold II was crowned on the day after the death of his predecessor, Edward the Confessor. The rush probably reflecting the contentious nature of Harold's succession, because remember, Edward didn't leave an heir. Whereas the first Norman monarch, William I, was also crowned on the day he became king, on the 25th of December 1066. Now, the location of coronations. The Anglo-Saxon monarchs used various locations for their coronations, including Bath, Kingston-upon-Thames, London, and Winchester. Now, I've been to Winchester Cathedral, and that used to be the capital of England before it was moved to London. The last Anglo-Saxon monarch, Harold II, was crowned at Westminster Abbey in 1066. The location was preserved for all future coronations. When London was under the control of rebels, Henry III was crowned at Gloucester in 1216. He later chose to have a second coronation at Westminster in 1220. 200 years later, Henry VI also had two coronations, as King of England in London in 1429 and as King of France in Paris in 1431. The general framework for coronation service is based on the sections contained in the second recension used in 973 for King Edgar. So again, this goes back to that time period. Although the service has undergone two major revisions, a translation has been used and modified for each coronation for the following 1,000 years. The sequence of taking an oath, anointing, investing of regalia, crowning and enthronement found in the Anglo-Saxon text have remained constant. So we still, in our coronations today, it is based on the Anglo-Saxon texts. And, pretty much, although it's had changes and additions, still follows a very, very, very similar format. The coronation ceremonies take place within the framework of Holy Communion. So there we go. Today, on this day in royal history, April the 3rd, was the coronation of Edward the Confessor. By the way, we know that in regular coronation services, Edward's crown, St Edward's crown, is placed on the monarch's head. This is not the crown that was used actually to crown Edward the Confessor. It's known as that, but it's not the actual crown. It was named after him to honour him, but obviously that crown was not placed on his head. Let me go back and find the chat room because I want to see what people are saying. Let's have a little look. LKH says, thank you for doing these on this day in royal history chats. Love learning royal history. Let's go back up a little bit. Right. Someone commenting on my earlier video. Maria says, thank you for these blogs, very interesting. I'm now going through a lot of royal history documentaries. Yes, there are so many out there. I'm enjoying quite a few as well. Yes, so thank you for joining. I'm not quite sure notifications are going out, whether people have been able to join this live chat. But thank you so much for joining. I aim to keep these on this day in royal history chats quite succinct. So I'm going to go now. But yeah, April the 3rd was the coronation of Edward the Confessor in 1042. So if you've enjoyed it, please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and also do hit the bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. Also, please do remember to subscribe to the channel. So, from me in Shropshire, mwah to you all, and goodbye.